So that is my little take. That's what I didn't really cover very much on yesterday's program as we were finishing off. These people they're back home now, man. They're back home. They have realized, they have accomplished the purpose. Well, the purpose. Well, I guess we start talking about purpose a lot, but and that was God's purpose for God's purpose for them. Listen, God's perfect will. Because when we start talking about your free will, God has a will also. God's will is not for any to perish, but all to come unto repentance. That's God's will. And so he has a will also, but he has a perfect will and a permissive will. Don't you have the same? Your kids keep on bugging you over and over. Like, lend me the car, lend me the car. No, no, no. Fine, he said, take the car. That's your permissive will. You really didn't want to give them the car. You didn't want them to go out on that Friday night after a football game, and then you'd have to go pick them up at the police station later in the day, in the evening, or early in the morning. Anybody ever been there? Maybe you were the one they were picking up. Nonetheless, permissive will. Perfect. God had a will. God's perfect will was never for them to go. That was God's perfect will. I didn't want you to go. But because of um, their attitude, their disobedience, their denying of the covenant that God had made with them. For God had made it. You got to see the bigger purposes of God when you see the covenant. Because the covenant was all about Messiah and saving the world. Anyway, they've realized the promise. They've realized the purpose that God has brought them back into the land for, and they're back into the perfect will of God. Could you imagine what that barbecue was like? Not the amount of bulls and rams, because we've seen a lot more bulls and a lot more rams, a lot more lambs, and a lot more goats. Just remember where we've been with Hezekiah or Josiah or those other ones. Solomon, when he dedicated the temple, man, he had they were cutting up that beef for quite a long time. But it was the heart of the people to say, we are back into the place of God's perfect will for us. This is where we belong. A lot of people, talk smack about northern New Mexico. Hey, well, those people are, and this place is, and the politics. But you know what? It's home, baby. It's where I belong, and I love it. Anyway, the last verse of the 8th chapter says, they delivered the king's orders to the king's satraps, to the governors in the region beyond the river, so they gave support to the people and to the house of God. So what do we see here? Okay, and we see that now they have brought these people into their promise, and now they deliver the king's orders to the governors of the land, to who is it? Artaxerxes, his appointed officials over the land. This is our permission. We have permission from Artaxerxes to do what we are doing. They delivered the king's orders to the king's satraps. Now you're going to have to look up satraps on your own, okay? And the governors in the region beyond the river, so they gave and supported the people in the house of God. And that's just, let's see if because I like showing this thing off here and seeing if it works. Satraps, all we have is International Standard Bible that gives us a little lieutenants, okay? That would be kind of something close, is lieutenants. You see that there in the International Standard version. So now we can go into the 9th chapter. Now chapter 9. When these things were done, what things? All right, the sacrifices there on the temple grounds, right there on the altar that was outside, the bronze altar that was right outside the temple. He says, when these things were done, the leaders came to me saying, the people of Israel and the priests and the Levites have not separated themselves from the people of the lands with respect to the abominations of the Canaanites, the Hittites, the Perizzites, the Jebusites, the Ammonites, the Moabites, the Egyptians, and the Amorites. We call all of these guys the Ite brothers. Why? For they have taken some of their daughters as wives for themselves and their sons, so that the holy seed is mixed with the peoples of those land. Indeed, the hand of the leaders and the rulers has been foremost in this trespass. So when I heard this thing, I tore my garment and my robe, plucked out some of the hair on my head and beard, and sat down astonished. Now, let's look at this, okay? So they've come back. They've rested for 3 days. They've had their celebration, their party, their shindig, their, what else do we call it? Their hootenanny. Thank you, Kevin. You see them a little bit there sometimes in the back. And they're just saying, yeah, all righty, okay. Now, when the leaders came to Ezra in verse 1, chapter 9, it says, the people of Israel and the priests and the Levites have not separated themselves from the people of the land. And you say, wait a minute, what's this all about? Are we segregating ourselves? Wait. Here's the key verse. This is what I want you to see as a key verse. With respect to the abominations. Okay, so we're going to highlight that for you there. With respect to the abominations. So what we're saying here is there was a way for Gentiles to come into the Jewish faith, into covenant. I don't like saying Jewish faith because to me it's all about covenant. So there was a way, but what happened is the people are leaving, the Jewish people are entering into the covenant of the Canaanites, the Hittites, the Perizzites, the Jebusites, the Ammonites, the Moabites, the Amorites, and lastly, the Egyptians. So we have kind of like a backwards type of a theme working on, and it's not working good. So if you want to read this, and before you get into all kinds of religious outrage, oh my God, who did these people think they were? With respect to the abominations is really key, and we'll talk more about that in just a little while.